Hey, it's Jessie from Squeegee Ink and welcome back to Printer's Corner. This is where we answer all your questions in a little bit more depth. So don't forget to use hashtag Printer's Corner on Instagram, YouTube, DMs or wherever so I can pick those up for a future episode. The three questions we have today are around: is it worth learning to screen print? The point of discharge ink and how well discharge ink washes. If any of those questions are a bit more relevant to you, feel free to skip ahead in the video or stick around to see what I've got to say about the other things. Our first question is from Flowbeats805 and they said, question, would it be a waste of time to learn the process to make your own shirts and sweats? Asking because of the process time with all the screens. Oh, and I'm sure you need a lot of space too. So there's a few little questions in there. One of them's about, is it even worth doing or should I just delegate this part of the business out? The second one is about the screens getting in the way and that being a difficult thing to get down with exposure times and that kind of stuff. And then the third part is about space. I think if you ask any professional screen printer how they started and made their studio, they're going to tell you that they started in their bedroom or garage. So really, space and screen printing, you do need a little bit, but you don't need a lot. People can be really economical with it. Like for us, for example, we had a little exposure unit that we had under our bed and we used to wash screens out in the bath. So you can start very, very basic and quite cheaply. If you want to jump ahead to where you have a screen ready to print with, you can use a service like what we provide in the UK. We send out screens all the time with people's images already exposed on, and we call them pre-exposed screens. So that way you can just get ink, maybe a single arm press like the Riley Hopkins that we've shown in other videos. I'll put a link to us using the single arm press up here as well. That was a really good compact setup that I'm pretty sure almost anyone can get in their bedroom or even in the hallway. So space I don't think is the biggest problem for this. Now, talking about whether or not you should learn the process of screen printing, I'm probably a little bit biased because I think it's incredibly fun, enjoyable and rewarding to print your own shirts and then go out and sell them on the weekends, for example, which is what we do on our markets. I would say having a basic knowledge of screen printing is always an advantage. Firstly, you'll be able to tell whether the print is good. Say if you've only got a few orders and they're coming in drips and drabs in the beginning, you might even be able to print to order, and that means that you can keep all your inventory quite low and you're actually making a good profit per shirt instead of holding lots and lots of shirts that you're not quite sure whether you're going to sell or not. And then if it gets out of control, which hopefully it does for you and your brand really does sell out quite a lot, then it might get to the case where you're not being able to keep up with the demand. And in that situation, then you can delegate out to a print shop and then you can just focus on marketing and that type of thing. So I'm definitely going to say it's worth learning to screen print because it's fun, you can keep it in-house and you can start making a profit straight away. Our second question is from Hank and they've asked, discharge seems cool but loses brightness after 1 or 2 washes. I do understand what you're saying there, that discharge can lose its vibrancy, but it actually often comes down to a couple of quite easy things to control. We actually visited the Magnacolors factory and they gave us these sample packs. So they gave us 2 sample packs. So what we've done is we've washed one sample pack and left the other ones just how they were supplied to us. And I can actually just show you the vibrancy of the washed one versus the unwashed one. So I'll put some photos as well, but this one hasn't been washed yet and this one has. And you can kind of see there that it hasn't really lost its vibrancy. The thing to consider here is that they have an automatic which is printing all the colours at once, and it also has lots of control on how hard it can drive the inks into the garment. I think actually that pressure that you need to apply to water-based inks and especially discharge is really, really key, and sometimes people think their ink hasn't cured for long enough in the dryer, but actually they haven't forced the ink into the garment enough. So more pressure is needed. But if you're really struggling, there are additives that you can put in, like cross-linkers, which help with the durability and the wash fastness. Also, Magnacolors have loads of really good resources on their website about increasing washability and different techniques. They even tell you the mesh counts to use for different inks. So I understand that it can be frustrating to lose the vibrancy and discharge, but with a couple of little tweaks in your process, you should be able to hold on to most of it, like what they have here. Our third question for today is from Bad Brad, and they said, can you discharge on white just to get that softness? I think he's talking about printing on a white t-shirt with a discharge ink. And technically there isn't really an advantage there, because the discharge part of the formula is just stripping the dye away from the original garment. But if you're already printing on something that's white, it's probably even been bleached to be white. So there isn't really an advantage. But I think they're just trying to achieve a really nice soft hand feel. And you can get that with the inks that we use in the studio quite a lot, like the Magnacolors range. You're just trying to avoid the high solids inks. Maybe go for the Magna Print HB range, for example, and that's just the normal water-based inks. And they already have a really soft hand feel, especially when they've been through the wash on the first cycle. Then all of the kind of like even slight grittiness goes away, and it's basically dyeing the fibers of the garment instead of the ink sitting on top. So you don't need to use discharge, but do have a play around with it on other fabrics, because it's really fun and handy and can give some really nice results, especially on dark garments. So to round up today's question, which is, should I learn to screen print or should I commission a print shop? I'm going to say learn to screen print. Then you've got loads more control, it's fun, and you might even make more profit when you're starting out. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, and don't forget to load us up with more questions for next week using hashtag Printers Corner all over social media, YouTube videos, and even in the comments below, and I'll be sure to pick those up for a future episode.